He's addicted to murder and torture. Such people are often called Goths. Damn, that bitch is hard to pronounce. Hello everyone, this is Manga Recaps, and today we'll be talking about an obscure manga from 2002 to 2003 called Goth by Otsuichi. Although it's a short read with 5 chapters, it's a relatively unknown manga, which is such a shame because it's so good. People randomly start talking about this manga or recommending it, and you know why. That said, spoilers, obviously. The story features our protagonist, Kamiyama Itsuki, that has a morbid fascination with his classmate, Morino Yoru. He's edgy, cool, everybody likes him, he's friendly, but deep down, he's hiding a deep, dark secret. Itsuki is seen chatting with his classmate, but he monologues on how he's always been putting on a mask and faking his interactions. Ooh. The conversation shifts to the news and the story about the missing chopped off hands, which leads them to talking about Morino, who has scars on her wrist. They comment how she speaks to no one, seems to have no friends. At home, he investigates a wrist cut case. The perpetrator has never killed anybody, and only takes the victim's hands, which leads Itsuki to conclude that the perpetrator is obsessed with hands. I mean, like, no fucking shit. Just as he is, he adds, her hands. He wants to have Morino's hands. What the fuck? The next day, the teacher informs the class that there will be a test tomorrow, that the chemistry room needs to be cleaned. Suspecting that the teacher might have accidentally left the answer somewhere, Itsuki volunteers. When planning out to throw the trash can, Itsuki runs across Morino in the next room. He devises a plan to use another decoy trash can and switch it with the original one. After disposing the decoy, he would then look through the original in his spare time, looking for any notes that the teacher might have tossed out. In the hallway with the teacher notices Morino and is fascinated by her raven black hair. Itsuki comments how his sister's hair is just like that too. After incinerating the decoy, Itsuki looks through the original trash can and finds a mysterious puppet. Holding it up, he sees that its hands has been cut off. We cut to the teacher's perspective. He places the puppet's hands in a petri dish. As he opens the fridge door to place it in, we are greeted by a bizarre scene. I'm home. Welcome back. We've missed you. Pause. For real though, how stupid, negative IQ do you have to be to dispose of evidence that may incriminate you in the school's trash can? Suspecting his teacher, Itsuki breaks into the teacher's home. Noticing a strange smell coming from the fridge, he opens it, and his suspicions were confirmed. Itsuki grins. Sometime later, the teacher returns home and notices his home had been broken into. Quickly, he rushes to the fridge and realizes everything in it is gone. In a frenzy, he also realizes his valuables were not stolen, only what was in the fridge. He concludes that it was her doing, referring to Morino, and so he interrogates her. In school. Bruh. Bro, are you a fucking dumbass? He shows her his proof, a long strand of raven black hair. Morino is clueless, while the teacher becomes increasingly physical. Itsuki looks from a distance, reminding us that his sister also has raven black hair. The teacher strangles Morino, but she was able to fight back and call for help. People gathered to the room. The hand robber ended up being exposed as only a sex offender and was expelled as a result. Itsuki had hoped that in framing Morino, the teacher would have taken her hands and he would then be able to steal it back from him. Sometime after, Morino began talking with Itsuki for the first time. This was the beginning of their strange relationship. When seeing her hands, Itsuki always gets reminded of his failed project. He begins playing with the thought of killing her. One day, Morino found a strange notebook with the gruesome details of murder. The two quickly conclude that this was a case of a serial killer that had been running in the news lately. Morino states that she found the notebook dropped in her favorite cafe. The notebook was probably the killer's. The next day, the two travel to the location of the murder that has not been discovered yet, as written on the notebook. Therein lie they find a gruesome spectacle. A couple of days later, Itsuki is seen in Morino's favorite cafe waiting for her. When she arrives, Itsuki is shocked. She is dressed in the exact same way as the victim. Yo, she is just begging to be fucking murdered. Itsuki asked about how she discovered the notebook. The weather was terrible and nobody but the owner went out. Morino found the notebook after coming out of the toilet, so the killer had to be in the cafe. At home, the latest victim has been discovered by the police. Itsuki's little sister points out how the victim looks similar to all the other ones before. We cut to another POV. The killer is seen cutting crosses onto the victim and telling them to repent for their sins. Morino can be seen tied up in the exact same room as the killer. He leaves early, letting her know that his shift is about to begin. Itsuki receives a message from Morino. "Help me." Morino has been missing for days. After confirming she's not at her place, picks up the notebook from her mom, who luckily did not read it because Deus Ex Machina, and searches for Morino. He wishes to be able to see the perpetrator kill Morino with his very own eyes.
What?
Itsuki looks everywhere aimlessly for Morino, to no avail. That's when his sweat drips on the notebook, and something clicks in his head. Itsuki visits the cafe once again and is greeted by the owner. He sits across from him and asks, "Is Morino still alive?" He shows the owner the notebook and he fesses up. Itsuki realizes the reason the notebook is so detailed is because the crime didn't always go as planned, and so the notebook would have been with the killer at all times so that it can be updated in real time. As such, the killer would have noticed his notebook would have gone missing immediately. Itsuki trusted his intuition that the killer would have come to the conclusion that either someone must have found the notebook or that it was left lying around somewhere. And the only one who left the cafe at the time was the owner. The owner congratulated Itsuki and hands him the keys to where Morino is being kept. He offers his hand to Itsuki, and Itsuki shakes it. The owner leaves, never to be seen again. I know he's a messed up serial killer and everything, but I gotta admit, that was a really cool way to make an exit. Itsuki finds Morino tied up and sets her free using one of the knives from many being displayed in the room. He also finds several mysterious crosses. Morino asks why the owner would do something like this, clueless to everything. Itsuki suspects that maybe he was happy to see her again. Morino doesn't get it. Itsuki takes the knife set and the pages with crosses with him as a souvenir, while Morino is left oblivious about the killer's identity. The chapter begins with a boy and a boy. The boy and a boy, what the fuck am I saying? Okay. The chapter begins with a boy buried underground in a coffin, and a man watching over him. There is a small bamboo that lets the boy breathe and talk with him. The boy begs the man to let him out, but the man apologizes for he is unable to do so. He grabs a nearby water hose and suffocates the fuck out of that toddler underground. The man had the urge to bury a man alive, and now that urge has started to come back. Present date, the man is seen driving in a car and spots Morino. Just like all the others, he's a major fucking simp, and he's been entranced by her. What is she, Belle Delphine? The next day, Itsuki is told by his classmates that a loud cry was heard somewhere near where Morino lives. They suspect that she's been kidnapped. Itsuki believes that it's silly and dismisses it. Cut to the man's POV. We see him approaching a bamboo shoot, mysteriously coming off the ground, just like in the beginning of the chapter. Confused cry of help emerges from the bamboo. The girl is identified to be Morino from her school ID. He reveals to her that she's been buried. As the guy is walking away, the girl retorts that everything will come to light eventually. She also says that she has a pen with her, and that she can use it to stab her own jugular in an attempt to scare him. The man just doesn't give a fuck and remains unfazed, but she adds that she won't die alone. He will never allow it, referring to Itsuki. The man leaves, but an uneasiness looms over him. He then realizes he can't find his notebook. That's when he realizes it might have been in the coffin along with the girl, or in the scene of the crime. And so the man returns to the scene, only to find Itsuki standing there. Itsuki tells the man he's looking for someone. The man replies by asking if he's a friend of the girl. Itsuki is taken back. After all, he never mentioned his friend being a girl at all. The man nervously replies that he also knows a girl in the same area. Itsuki tells the man that he likes snooping around places where crimes have occurred. This area they're in is precisely just that, and it's always possible that he will meet the perpetrator who returns to the scene of the crime. The man gets nervous. He suspects that Itsuki found his notebook and wants to leave immediately. Itsuki notices how pale the man has become and offers to bring him back to his house. The man accepts. They return. The man tries to come up with possible ways to dispose of Itsuki. They make small talk about Morino when suddenly Itsuki gets a phone call. The man contemplates on how his life decisions had led him up to this point. What broke the trance was Itsuki saying it was Morino that called, and that she was fine. The man is obviously shocked, but when he sees her in person, there is no denying it. He returns to the scene of the crime, but there is no sound coming from the bamboo shoot. The next day he returns once again to find it's a completely different girl, and she really did stab herself to death with her pen. What a woman of her words, respect. Itsuki suddenly shows up behind him along with another man, with tears rolling down his eyes. Itsuki introduces this man as the victim's boyfriend. The man still believes Itsuki still has his notebook, but when Itsuki denies it, he asks him to search the body. This notebook was a police badge all along. They both return to the policeman's home where Itsuki questions his motives. The man answers that he just felt like it, and that he didn't know what came over him. He decides to turn himself into the police. Itsuki doesn't stop him, but requests him to wait some time before that, and that he shouldn't worry about the victim's boyfriend. He'll take care of things himself. That's when he hears it. The bamboo shoot propped up and the hole covered up again. I love you. Forever. Because we'll be together. Forever. Sam. The next chapter begins with a little girl telling the story of how she saw a dead body for the first time. Morino awakens. It was her dream. An ominous picture lays beside her bedside. She tells of how she has an identical twin sister, Yu, and that her hanging was the day she lost her ability to smile. She saw her own death. In school, Morino confronts Itsuki about the picture. Itsuki is clueless. Morino says that her sister drew it and accuses Itsuki of sending it to her. When she realizes Itsuki is innocent, she apologizes and proceeds to leave. Just then, Itsuki stops her and asks her to tell him about her sister. She is hesitant, but she agrees. She talks about her childhood with her twin sister and how they would often both play pranks on other people by pretending to be dead. However, everything started to turn sour when they started to hang themselves. She saw Yu enter the shed alone and thought nothing of it, but an hour later, the safety rope that held her had snapped, and so a tragic accident had occurred. She assumes that Itsuki was the culprit who sent her the picture because nobody else would be so interested in her past. I mean, she doesn't really have any friends. So, who else could it be? As a token of apology for suspecting him, Morino hands Itsuki a photograph of a decapitated head from a murder case. Morino realizes that Itsuki is, like her, a goth, except that he loves seeing flesh and blood, while she likes seeing people suffer. Yo, shut the fuck up. You saw a corpse like, what, twice in your life, and now you're acting so big. Oh, he loves seeing flesh and blood, while I like seeing people suffer. We have different preferences, like, yo, just shut the fuck up. Morino explains that she got the photograph from a classmate, and begins suspecting that Itsuki is the killer because he was able to recognize the unpublished photograph in an instant. Just kidding, it was a joke, and Morino berates Itsuki for not laughing at her shitty excuse for a joke. Morino leaves and walks along with another guy. Itsuki's friends gather around him and consoles him for losing Morino. When alone, Itsuki pulls out his knife and admires it. Something is approaching. Morino then finds out from her mom that a classmate came around to her house a week ago, asking about her childhood. She calls her grandmother, and yes, she confirms that a guy around her age did come to visit and took their drawing with him. Morino confronts Itsuki the next day. From her behavior, Itsuki suspects Morino is hiding something. Frustrated, she walks away. Don't be so hard on him, a voice comes from behind her. It's only been like 2 chapters and she's kidnapped again. We cut to a scene where another guy is trespassing into an abandoned building. You are my prey, he says. Morino is in a nightmare. Why didn't you come to save me? A voice echoes. Do you want to lie to yourself forever? You liar! The death was meant for... I'm sorry, that was like the best acting I could muster. Morino wakes up tied up and is faced with a man. She recognizes him, and he points the knife to her and threatens to kill her. Final chapter. Morino recalls her impression of Itsuki in 9th grade. She points out his cold gaze, reminiscent of death itself. She knew from the beginning that he was dangerous. The man confesses his fascination with Morino and his ever-growing desire to kill her, which erupted, leading to him killing another person in the exact same location they are in. It was the man in the photograph. The scene cuts to Itsuki visiting Morino's home in the countryside. He chats with Morino's grandmother about the twins. The shy Yu is always hiding behind the more extroverted Yoru. She talked about how they were so identical that it was difficult to distinguish who died at first. The only way they could tell were the shoes. Yoru's were black, while Yu's were white, as shown from a drawing. The marks on the ground left behind were only from Yu's shoe. Yoru's were not present. She added that she remembered how Yoru did not even shed a single tear. While it is true that Yoru never did laugh or cry much before the incident, afterwards it seemed like that ended it. The man continued to add that it was odd how she didn't have her shoes on when she died, unlike in the picture. This leads him to believe that Morino took off her shoes and killed her. That was why she was so haunted by the past, he claimed, after ripping her shirt off, because of course he feels the need to do that. Morino admits that it was all him behind everything. This is when the man gets caught off guard. He didn't send her any picture. That's when, plot twist, Itsuki appears in the most badass entrance befitting of the protagonist. Am I disturbing you, Morino? The shoes also caught his attention. Normally when people commit suicide, they would take off their shoes and place it neatly beside themselves. However, they were in a mess. Yoru would not have made that mistake. There were no other marks because Yoru did not have her shoes on. That was when Yu came up with the idea to switch identities. The one behind everything was dung dung dung, the classmate all along, who the fuck knew? The classmate knocks out Morino with some chloroform, and the two have a bout, both a knife in hand, and so they fight. Ching 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 ching. The classmate was able to knock the knife out of Itsuki's hand and gain an upper hand, just when everything seems bleak. He has another knife. The classmate falls dead. When Morino comes to, she asks Itsuki what happened. He lied about what happened. After killing him, he buried the body behind the ruins in an abandoned field that won't develop in the next few years. Itsuki asked Morino whether the story of her killing her sister was true. She said it was an accident. The safety rope had snapped, and she tried everything to save her sister, even when she was being kicked in the stomach by her. And so, she berates her, calling her a useless good for nothing. And with that, she let go. And Yu became Yoru. That was the day Yu Morino died. Morino ends by predicting that she knew that if someone were to figure out her dark past, it would have been Itsuki. Itsuki walks away. If you feel like dying again sometime, just tell me. I'll take care of it for you then. Morino, whose emotion seems to have disappeared, cries in that empty classroom. The end. As cheesy as it sounds, if you liked the video and you would like to see more like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe, share it, all the yada yada. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.